This is Chris Parsons at Behind the Curtain, back with my guest, Bree Solomon. You hanging in there, Bree?
That I am.
Excellent. All right. So, Bree, let's talk a little bit more about Walt Disney World. Now, what year did you live in Orlando, or years? And when was the last time you actually went back?
Well, I was brought up between Orlando and living in a small town in Massachusetts. So I guess from 1990.
Yeah.
Till just recently, like 2 years ago.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So you spent a long, long time there. I was only there
Yeah.
for 4 years, but it's 4 amazing years. All right. So a typical Orlandioian. What do you say about someone who lives? Is there a word for that? Like a...
Not that I know of.
No, I don't
actually.
either. That's why I just made that Orlandoian out. That one's good, huh? All right. Did you ever make it out to Pleasure Island nightclubs when they existed out in Lake Buena Vista?
Yes, I did. Oh my goodness. Pleasure Island is so much fun.
They are. Now, just to set the scene for the listeners, Pleasure Island no longer exists, unfortunately. It was taken down a few years ago. But in its heyday, back in the early 90s when they first brought it up, the idea was they wanted to have this one island that was just a huge night spot. So it had all kinds of different nightclubs. You remember the type of nightclubs it had?
Yeah, and it was the only part of Disney that was like specifically geared towards adults too.
That's right.
So that the parents could go off and have fun too.
Yes.
Yeah, but they had some amazing nightclubs.
Yeah.
My favorite was this karaoke bar that they had.
Yeah.
Now, I love karaoke, Broadway Under the Stars, but
Yeah.
this karaoke bar was different than any one that I've ever been to. It had a live band that would play with you, and you actually had go-go dancers. You had different effects going on,
and super high tech. Yeah.
Exactly.
And for that day and age, they were really on the cutting edge.
Yeah, and if you're going out for that one night and you're singing a song, you feel like a star. It's just so much fun.
Yeah.
I love that place.
My favorite place on Pleasure Island was a disco called Mannequins, and this place was amazing. They had this huge revolving dance floor. So as you went in to this huge disco, it was like 4 different floors of this multiplex disco, and it all looked down on the revolving floor. And you'd get out there and you'd dance. And when you first started dancing on a revolving floor, I don't know if you've ever tried it. It really, it takes a little getting used to. And when you're first coming on it or going off of it, you've got to, it's kind of like getting on and off a ride at Disney, except after having, 6 or 7 rum and cokes.
Getting on wouldn't be that big a problem, but I can imagine getting off at the end of the night.
Yeah, there were a few wipeouts, I will say that. They also had this amazing catwalk, which was up on the 4th floor. And I remember they would put shows on 3 times, dance shows 3 times a night. And the last one I remember seeing was a Phantom of the Opera show, and it was done to the techno version of Phantom of the Opera. I don't know if you ever heard that, but it was so cool the way they did it, and just amazing dance styles. It was very cool. So then they had all kinds of food vendors. You could walk out in the actual island part and go into or out of whatever club you wanted. So you actually had access to like 8 or 9 clubs in this one particular place.
Yeah, it had such a great atmosphere, really.
It's a shame that they took it down. And of course, again, the Disney Beast. If you were a Disney member on Thursdays, you could get in for 50% free and 50% off drinks and stuff. So all the Disney cast members were out there on Thursday nights, which made for quite a party.
Why would they take this away?
I know, it's too bad. All right, Bree, what other secret information can you tell us about Walt Disney World?
Well, not so much secret information as much as it is like insider information about living there. We always did this thing called drinking around the world. Now in Epcot, they've got different little countries set up all around the park, and they have specialty drinks for each country.
Yep.
So my friends and I would all get together. I think we'd start in Mexico, and they just had the best drinks at all we would try different ones. It's an amazing day if you want like a different type of Disney experience.
And this is definitely something that only locals would do. I remember this as well. Now, which was your favorite country in Epcot Center?
Oh, that's tough. Oh my goodness, I'm not sure. Well, probably Mexico for the margarita.
Yeah. Do you know what I liked? I liked Morocco because they had those funky belly dancers and the whole feel, and they had the whole exotic foods and stuff. It was very cool. But I remember many nights, and I also remember that in the very center, you know how there was that huge lake in the center of Epcot and all of the different countries were around it. When they started that Illuminations light and laser show, that was one of the first laser shows.
Goodness.
Definitely the first one I ever saw, but definitely I think one of the first ones in the U.S. that really utilized that new technology with lights and lasers and everything.
When you see that show, your mouth is agape from like the start to finish.
Yeah. It's hard now because I see fireworks shows and they just all pale in comparison, because every night at the Magic Kingdom or at Epcot, I'd be seeing these amazing fireworks. And really, even if I compare them to the fireworks competition here in Pattaya, which is fantastic, they still don't hold a candle.
Really, they don't.
No, it's amazing. All right, well, Bree, since your last visit and our very first Top 10 countdown about The Lion King, we have been continuing the tradition of a regular behind-the-curtain countdown. So in keeping with this, I'd like to now count down the top 10 things you never knew about Walt Disney World. Would you mind helping me once again with this, Bree?
Of course.
Excellent. Then, without further ado, here are the top 10 things you never knew about Walt Disney World. Take it away, Bree.
All right, number 10. Natural pest management is used throughout Walt Disney World. Disney releases 250,000 warrior insects each year via programs like the Ladybug release at Epcot. Feral cats also roam the Disney property to keep the rodent population down.
See, this is an amazing thing because they don't want to use any chemicals. They don't want to be damaging the environment. And so they're finding these natural ways of controlling mosquitoes, controlling
awesome
roaches and stuff. That's why you never see as many of those pests when you're in one of their parks. Very interesting. All right, number 9. There's a lot more to Disney World than meets the eye. The park is built above a 9-acre network of tunnels called utilidors, which cast members use to get along. And we talked about that in our last show, and also how in those utilidors they have pipes that run on the top of it.
Goop you were telling us about?
They pipe all of the trash directly from the trash can through those tubes and underneath, so that the guests never see them taking out trash, which is really interesting. Yeah. But unfortunately for the people underneath there, sometimes we have what we call tunnel blood.
That's tunnel blood.
It drips some of the juices from all that lovely trash.
Oh, gross. All right, number 8. Thanks to an Imagineer's trick called force perspective, Cinderella's castle is actually much smaller than it looks. The bricks at the castle windows are smaller at the top, and the Main Street buildings are angled to make the castle seem further away.
Another one of those amazing Imagineer tricks that they do. When you walk in at the top of Main Street, as you walk into the Magic Kingdom, and you look at that castle, it just looks like it's towering above everything there. And in actuality, it isn't that big. It's all an optical illusion. Amazing stuff.
As a kid coming into the park when you first see that castle, too.
It just takes your breath away.
It does.
Yeah. All right, number 6. The Morse code you hear clicking at the entrance of Frontierland isn't random. It's Walt Disney's opening day dedication speech at Disneyland.
All right, number 5. Epcot stands for Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow. Well, that's a mouthful.
Yeah, not many people know what Epcot stands for, because that was... No. Yeah, it sure is.
Yeah. It was originally meant to be an actual model community where 20,000 residents would live with schools, monorail transportation, and no retirees.
Yeah, it didn't actually. They were thinking of making it as a residence. That was the original premise behind it when the plans came out, and it just developed into another park instead. But they did eventually get back to that whole idea of having Disney resident. Now there are many of them all around the world, but they came back to that whole idea of having a Disney World residency, which they have in just outside of Orlando now as well. Number 4, and this one's interesting. All the flags on Disney World's Main Street are fake, except for the one on the central courtyard flagpole. The Imagineers did this so that the flags wouldn't need to be lowered or illuminated every night, and they wouldn't have to keep replacing them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they're very smart.
They are. Number 3. Most people think the original Fantasyland was intended to have a medieval theme all along, but it actually stemmed from the 1955 opening of Disneyland in California, when Imagineers covered the unfinished parts of the park with tents. The theme stuck.
Yeah, now they've since redone Fantasyland from the original Fantasyland and that it was, but it still has quite predominantly featured those tents, and that's where it came from. It's very interesting. Number 2. The houses in Liberty Square are designed so that if you put an 18 in front of the address, that's the date the house style would have been popular. The address of the Hall of Presidents is the year the Constitution was first ratified.
All right, and number one, the best one. I love this.
This is cool.
Walt Disney called his plan to purchase property around Orlando Project X. He bought the land using dummy companies that were chaired by, and get this, Mr. M. Mouse.
Mr. M. Mouse. And to this day, that rat still runs Orlando. It was interesting, though, because Walt Disney was very brilliant in how he did this. He started buying up all of these little pieces of property, and he knew exactly what he was going to do with them. But he knew if he told people, the prices would skyrocket. So he was buying them under assumed company names and under assumed names for really, really cheap prices. So he got all that land for just a fraction of what he normally would if he told them what it was going to be. And then, of course, the rest is history, isn't it?
I wonder if he signed documents like that too.
Yeah, probably. He was a little bit of a dark horse. In fact, that's his biography is entitled The Dark Horse, or I think it might be an unofficial biography. I can't remember. All right, coming up next is our exclusive behind the scenes, can you guess it, Broadway Buster Trivia Challenge questions. Stay tuned.
The good music continues right after an update of the world's news.
Yesterday.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. UN inspectors get their first chance to investigate last week's alleged use of chemical weapons in Syria when they visit a site in the Damascus suburbs on Monday. The former Egyptian president, Hosni Mubarak, has made his first appearance in court since he was released from jail and placed under house arrest. And the trial of Bo Xilai, once one of China's most powerful politicians, will resume on Monday in the eastern city of Jinan.
Welcome to another hour of Pattaya's best mix of music, information, and entertainment.
That's entertainment.
This is Community Pulse.
The world is the stage is a world of entertainment.
And now it's entertainment time with Chris Parsons as he sets the stage for another Pattaya Players segment of Behind the Curtain here at 96 FM's Community Pulse.
This is Chris Parsons here with Bree Solomon, and we are still here at 96 FM's Community Pulse Behind the Curtain radio show. Tonight we've been giving away more secrets of Walt Disney World and explaining what happens behind the theme park magic. Coming up next is our ever-popular Broadway Buster trivia quiz question. But just before we reveal this week's challenge, enjoy some more music, starting with the classic Disney favorite, the title track from Beauty and the Beast, performed by Celine Dion and Peebo Bryson.